All right, so can everybody hear me well? I hope. Okay, good. So I am going to talk into the microphone so that the audience over there in internet land can hear me better. And you know what I'm going to do? If it gets stuffy in here, let me know. But I'm just going to turn that off for a moment here, just so that I'm not competing with the heat, with the air conditioner rather. One question that came up before we even begin, when I had announced that I was going to be doing this again this month, is someone had mentioned that they were having difficulty hearing the questions that are asked. They hear my answer, but they don't know where the question came from. So remind me if I don't remember to do this to repeat the question. So if you have a question and you ask it, just remind me to. If I don't do it, let me know, and that way everybody out there can know. The question is, what I'm answering, which is helpful, obviously. When they don't know the question, they don't know what I'm talking about. So right off the bat, I figured I'd get the ball rolling. I'm sure that you all are here because you might have questions, or at least you're interested in hearing what questions other people have. But I usually don't have any structure in terms of these lessons, as I'm sure you know. I often just allow it to be student-led, but we do these, we do one of these once a month, assuming that, questions are going to come up about the material that we're doing, or maybe someone upgrades and they get a new instrument and they want to learn about that. But I really don't have so much of an idea as to what we're going to go over. I basically leave that in your hands. But I did want to start out talking about something which basically affects all of you. I know that sometimes there's questions, well, this question didn't affect me on my instrument, or that question didn't affect this person. So there's one that affects you all that I just want to at least start out with, and then we can jump into student questions after that. And that is this master volume control over here on the left-hand side, which on Lowry's is on the left, on Yamaha's it's on the left as well. And a master control is a fairly common thing to see on anything. It controls the volume of everything that's coming out of the speakers. I know that you have a different volume for your bass, you have a different volume for your drums, you have all of these volumes over here, but there's one master volume which controls everything, okay? And I bring that up because you can manipulate the volume that way. Now that might seem obvious, okay? I have a master volume there, I can play with the volume. The issue that arises a lot is that that's not the only way that you can change the volume. Obviously, this will change the volume of everything, but there's something else that you have which will also change the volume of everything, and that's the what?
Pedal.
The foot pedal on the floor. Okay. Now, if that foot pedal on the floor also changes the volume in sum total, if you have your volume way down over here, and you push your foot to the floor as loud as it can go, that's as loud as it's going to be. Okay? You can, for TV land out there, a little waltz. Now, I have that foot pressed down as far as it can go, and that's a very common concern for not only beginners, but if you've happened to have brought that master volume down for whatever reason, and you're noticing you're not getting any volume out of the instrument, you're pushing your foot forward and back. Now, obviously, the benefit to being able to use the foot is that you don't have to reach up here and hit these buttons. If I was playing on an instrument where that was my only opportunity to make volume changes, I'd have to sacrifice the use of one of my hands, probably the left, in order to make changes in the middle of the song. And music changes volume often. I mean, you think of all of the instruments out there that can manipulate their volume, which is virtually everything. I mean, granted, they do it different ways, but a flute player can play at a high volume or a low volume, a trombone player, someone that's playing the piano or the violin or the guitar. Even when we speak, you know, we have inflection in our voice, and it goes up and it goes down. And it adds feeling or emotion into the song. Well, the ability to use that foot is giving you the opportunity to manipulate that volume without ever having to take your fingers off of the keys in order to do it. Okay, I know this for some of you, this is common knowledge stuff, but not for everybody. And the reason that I bring it up again is because if you're manipulating your volume over here, which obviously they give you the opportunity to do, your manipulation over on the left-hand side is going to affect how loud that foot pedal is, or how loud it can get. You know, for example, I have some students that say, you know, I want to use my foot to change the volume because it really adds a nice element into the song. You know, if I choose a style here and I put the volume on such that I can change my volume up and down with my foot, and I have a beat going, I can raise and lower that beat with my right foot. So if I'm playing, I can add a lot of emotion or expression into the song. Now, I brought my volume up and down the whole time I was playing that, and I did not have to sacrifice use of either one of my hands to do it. So that's why the foot pedal's there. Now, why they give you the ability to do both is, meaning use the panel as well as, maybe you are not incredibly comfortable with the foot pedal, and you're afraid that if your foot accidentally goes too far forward, the windows behind you are going to start to rattle because the volume is way louder than you expect it to be. Well, what you can do is you can set what you want your top volume to be over here. Okay, I often compare it to like the governor in your car that only allows it to go so fast. You know, the little Nissan that I have, I think the speedometer goes up to like 160. Yeah, I don't think that would go 160 if you dropped it out of an airplane. Okay? So it's, you know, your car is only allowed to go a certain speed. Well, that's basically what your master volume over on the left-hand side allows you to be able to do as well. So if you bring that down and you say, ugh, and you say, you know, I don't want it to get any louder than this, and this is my foot all the way down to the floor. That's as loud as it will get. Okay? So you're basically saying, even if my foot goes as far down as it can go, it can only get this loud. Okay? Because don't forget that on these, even on the Easy 3 here, and I say that because this is their entry level, there are other things that you can do with that foot pedal. Okay? For example, the Easy 3 here, and again, I'm not going over something a lot of you don't already know, but there's a little switch right on this instrument on the left-hand side, and that's the switch that allows you to bend the notes. You know, if you're playing something like a trombone, for example, and you put that trombone on, and you say, volume up a little bit here. Now, if I have my foot on that little switch, I can make it. that's attached to my volume. So sometimes students feel like if they're going to go over and get that glide there, that their foot's going to go forward without them wanting it to. And now they get all of this volume out of nowhere. So you can basically save yourself from that fear, if you will, by bringing your master volume down. Okay. Now, one thing you probably want to check is, does your instrument stay at the master volume that you set it at after you turn it off? Okay. And some instruments, it's easier to notice that than others. For example, if I go over here to the Inspire, I'll turn the Journey on here as well. I hope my batteries aren't dying. No, it doesn't sound like it.
Where does it say Inspire on that?
It says it in the screen. It says it in the screen. It says Inspire on the screen. Okay. So my master volume here, this is a great example. I must have, whoever played this yesterday, because I haven't turned it on since yesterday, the master volume's down pretty low. So it kept it. It kept that volume where the last person that played it put it. Okay. And again, that's a good thing to know, because if you feel like you're not getting the maximum amount of volume from your foot, it's likely that you may have manipulated your master volume over here the day before or whenever the last time it was that you played it. And if you didn't bring it back up, it's only going to get so loud. And I do get questions on that very often. I'm basically trying to save you from an undue service call. That happens a lot. I feel like my instrument doesn't have as much power as it usually does. And that's the first thing I say is, check the foot. Is the foot all the way to the floor? If the answer is yes, check the master volume. And let me know where that is. Because if they're both not up, then you only have it set to be able to play at about half the volume that it can, even if your foot goes all the way to the floor. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and again, that affects everybody. Okay, Bert, go ahead.
John, there's another reason why you use the volume too, the master volume.
Okay.
And I usually have mine all the way up. But number one rule is when my little bride is sleeping, I turn it way down so she cannot hear it.
Okay.
I learned the hard way that you don't have it playing loud. When you feel like playing loud and she's sleeping, you don't.
That's not going to work. Okay, so yeah, that's true. You know, whether there's somebody else in the house, so everybody in TV land there, Bert was saying that he keeps his master volume down when his wife's still in bed, which makes sense. You know, some people like to play in the middle of the night, and even if they live by themselves, they don't want the neighbors waking up. And if you don't like to wear headphones, which some people don't like to wear headphones, that's exactly something that you can do. You bring your volume down, and that way you don't have to worry about waking anybody up.
That's apartment setting.
It does. It is something that is likely, if you have neighbors on each side of the wall, that you might want to take advantage of. That's your hand up.
Yeah, it's just that one button, then you don't have to put it up and then set it.
Well, it goes up and down in degrees.
Oh,
so,
okay.
so Betsy's question is regarding: do you just go, so the master volume goes up? I can bring it all the way up with all of these red lights here. I can bring it down, but it goes down in increments.
Okay.
So right now it's set virtually almost off. And if I bring this all the way down, just so you can hear it, here's the beat. Put the beat on here so you can hear it. It's gone.
Yeah.
All of these lights are off. Okay, the rhythm's going. I mean, you see the lights going around. There's something happening, but I brought the volume all the way down, and I can play with my foot as much as I want down there, and nothing's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's just not on or off. It's up or down, just like the foot can go up or down in degrees. That can go up or down in degrees. Yes.
Okay, so on my Easy 2,
Yes.
I have the master volume and the accompaniment
Mhm.
volume.
Yep.
So I found that when I was trying to play the can-can last week,
Mhm.
and I was doing the pizzicato, I couldn't really hear the pizzicato.
Right.
So should I bring down the accompaniment volume, or?
So pizzicato. The question is, Catherine was using a certain sound, and the sound was not working well with the style that you were using in terms of volume. So you weren't hearing the pizzicato strings as loudly as you'd like to hear them. Now there's a couple things that you can do to remedy that. The first thing I usually suggest, particularly with something like the pizzicato strings, if you feel like they're not loud enough, I would first hit the duet button, because that's a really quick fix sometimes. Because what the duet button does is it makes it sound like you're using, in this case, 2 fingers for every 1 finger you're using. And the more fingers that you're using, even if it's virtually being done by the instrument, the louder it can tend to appear to be. So that would be number 1. If it seems like the sound is very delicate, if you hit duet, sometimes that's a quick fix. You hit 1 button and you're good to go. To your question though, regarding the button next to the master volume, which is called accompaniment, that will do exactly that. That will bring your volume down in terms of the background that's playing, so that you can hopefully hear, in the case of the pizzicato strings, you can hear those a little bit better. Don't forget that accompaniment volume that you're talking about, which is over on the left-hand side of the instrument here, does not affect the whole accompaniment. Okay? And that can be a little bit confusing, but you want to keep in mind that the accompaniment volume is separate from the volume of the drums. And the drums technically are part of the accompaniment, but since you can manipulate your volume of your drums in a different section, they're not attached to this. The accompaniment volume would be basically everybody else on the Easy 2. The Easy 3, you have another volume for bass. So they separated the bass from the rest of the accompaniment as well. So think of the accompaniment as if there's a guitar player strumming some chords in the background, or a piano player, or a horn section or something like that. That's going to be the accompaniment volume. So if I bring in a beat here, and I bring the accompaniment volume all the way down, I'm still hearing 2 things. I'm hearing a drummer, and I'm hearing a bass player on here. Now if I bring the bass down, now all I hear is drums. And after I bring the drums down, now I don't hear anything. Okay, now my right hand is still here. So I have right hand all the way to a point, and this is my accompaniment. And since I brought everything down, I can't hear it at all. Now, obviously you never do that, but I show you that because if there's ever a question as to, am I hearing this right hand above the style, or is it at least competing with it, you can bring this all the way down to nothing. And then there'll be no doubt that you can hear that right hand. But my first suggestion, whenever you can't hear a note and it's relatively delicate, I mean, if we put these pizzicato strings on, they're not an overwhelmingly loud and they're relatively delicate sounding, and I can understand that. If you put that sound on and you're trying to compete with standards or something like that, you're hearing all of these things going on, yeah, you're probably not going to hear that sound. Okay, but right now, obviously you can hear it fine, but that's because this is completely down. So yeah, I mean, you have your accompaniment volume over here. Remember, that is separated from your drums on the Easy 2. And just kind of bring them down in degrees. Okay? Now on some of the other instruments, you have a bit of a different way to be able to do the same thing. This starts on the fanfare. So the fanfare, the Journey, the Inspire, the Rialto, the large aria has this as well, obviously. You have a little section over here on the Journey and the fanfare, and over here on the Rialto and the Inspire, called balance. And it says accompaniment on one side and it says melody on the other. The accompaniment is the left hand, obviously the melody is the right hand. So if you want your right hand to sound a little bit louder than your left hand, rather than manipulating your volumes over here, which you can do, you can just bring the balance to the right side by a couple clicks. And if you do that, you've given the right hand more volume than the left. So basically, if they were set evenly, one goes up, the other one goes down. Okay, but I guess it goes to show you that if they felt it necessary to take up space on the panel for something like that, that it's something that comes up a lot. You know, they don't just kind of haphazardly choose things to go on the panel. Everything that's on the panel has a purpose. And so the fact that they gave us a balance on some of the larger equipment, you know, leads me to believe that that's an issue that comes up enough to where they wanted to remedy that situation, maybe in a little bit of an easier way. Not that this is hard. This is, you know, this is fine. But they felt as if it might be a little bit, you know, easier, because the larger the instruments get, the more volumes you have control over. Well, this is just taking them all and moving them one way or the other. Next question. Go ahead.
Does the Rialto have the pizzicato buttons?
It does. So does the Bert's question, does the Rialto have the pizzicato? And it does. So it is in a... So the pizzicato is sometimes hard to find. It's as hard to find as, for some students, the glockenspiel. Okay, now we used the glockenspiel before. Now, when you hit I'll speak to the Rialto, you know, specifically, because that's what you have and that's what your question was. You have a listing in your owner's manual of all of the instruments that you have the opportunity to use. And they're all in alphabetical order. And I can tell you that if you go to P, you ain't going to find pizzicato.
No.
Okay. Just like if you go to G, you're not going to find glockenspiel. Okay.
I found that out.
Now, we'll start with pizzicato. Why don't you find pizzicato under P? What do you find under P? You find things like the piccolo, the pan flute, okay? The reason that pizzicato is not there is that pizzicato is not an instrument.
Oh, okay.
It's a way of playing an instrument, and the instrument that it's playing is strings. So you need to go in strings, which is S, and then there's an alphabetized section under S, one of which is pizzicato. Okay? So if it says pizzicato strings, look in strings, go over, and you'll see it under S, alphabetized that way. So it's like a little subsection. The glockenspiel's under bells. So if you go to bells, if you go to G, you're going to find guitar. And you'll find a ton of them, but you're not going to find the glockenspiel. So if you go to B, bells, you're going to find the church bells, the chimes, the carillon, the tubular bells, and you'll find the glockenspiel there. So it's sometimes a matter of knowing the family that the sound is in, and then, you know, like for example, this one's easy, but you wouldn't look under A for alto saxophone. You look under saxophone and you find alto, because it's a type of saxophone. Okay, they did that, and it's interesting because on the Easy 3, the Easy 4, the Easy 10, the Fanfare, the Journey, they put the sounds in their own categories. So if I was looking for pizzicato strings, I'd go to the strings button first, and it would be under there. Okay? The reason that they did it a little bit differently on the Rialto and the Inspire is that by giving you all of the instruments in one listing, you can put 4 to 5 sounds from the same general type of instrument all on at the same time. So you have like probably 50 pianos in there. You can put 5 pianos on simultaneously. Now I couldn't do that if I had one button that said pianos and a listing of a certain, you know, you could have 20 pianos under here, but I can't put 20 on together. I could put one. So by them giving you all of the sounds in one list, you can pick 5 things from the same general section and put them all on together. So that's why they do it that way. But it's confusing because you look under P and you figure that's where pizzicato is going to be. It's not there.
So if you use pizzicato, then you're going to have, on the Rialto, others, that you're going to have to memorize it, right? You're going to have to put it on memory.
So if you're going to use pizzicato, are you going to have to memorize it? Maybe.
In a piece or a score. If you
Maybe. I mean, not necessarily unless... so, I mean, you could. I mean, this could be a very long answer. I'm going to try to make it not a very long answer. But, you know, you have these four over here, 4 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of these boxes you can put a sound on.
Right.
Okay, so let's say in box number 1 under sounds, we put pizzicato strings. Number 2, we put violin. Number 3, we put piano. Number 4, we put trombone. Okay, so it's pizzicato strings on this button, piano on this one. What did I say? No, violin on this one, piano, trombone. That you don't have to memorize that. And if you just want to go through those sounds, they're in that box. So you just make sure you go to that box and that sound's there. I mean, if you want to save it indefinitely, yeah. And if you, because it's not gonna be there when you turn the power off.
No. But if it's in a piece, I mean, you're playing. You have several presets in a piece, and one particular section is going to be pizzicato. Then you're going to have to put that on memory in order to go to a second, third, and fourth preset, right?
If you're playing a piece and part of the song is calling for the pizzicato strings, and yeah, I mean, if you want it on a certain number, then yes, you'd want to save it to that number. You know, if you're in the middle of a song and you're looking for the pizzicato strings, now what I would do first is I'd see if it's already on one of those numbers. Because it could be. You know, remember, those numbers all have something on them before you put what you want on them. So if I'm looking, let's say I'm playing a country song, and I say, you know what, in the middle of this country song, I want the honky-tonk piano. Okay, so I hit my country button over here, and I find a country band, and okay, I say, all right, on the second page, I need honky-tonk piano. Now, could I put the honky-tonk piano on one of these numbers so I know where it is? I could.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I would do first is I'd say, does one of these numbers already have the honky-tonk piano? Because if it does, I just write that number on my music and just remember to hit it when I get to where it says honky-tonk piano. You know, so for example, number 2 says pedal steel guitar, and then a country guitar on the bottom keyboard. Number 3 says calliope and organs. Number 4, honky-tonk piano. Automatically is, oh, my volume's down. There's honky-tonk piano. So there's something on those numbers already. So if there is something that you're looking to use, and is a certain point in the song where you want to use it, I mean, I'd look on those numbers first. You know, check the screen. What's it say? Now I know number 4, using that country style, is the honky-tonk piano. So it's saving me having to put it on a number myself. I mean, that's the nice thing. It'd be one thing if these were all blank, but they're not. There's something there. So check what's there first. You know, I often tell students, and forgive me if you've heard me say this before, when students first get an instrument with these numbers, you know, because I have numbers there, I have numbers on the Yamahas as well, and they say, oh my gosh, what numbers do I use? And I tell them every number is going to sound good with the type of music that you chose. So there's a reason why Honky Tonk Piano is on number 4 here, and it's because I hit country. If I hit Latin, Honky Tonk Piano is not going to be on number 4. You know, maybe the marimba will be on 4. Maybe the trumpet will be on 4. Or, you know, it's going to give me then Latin sounds on these numbers as opposed to country sounds. So when someone says, I don't know which number to hit, I tell them, you know, you play the lotto? Play the lotto numbers. Play your cell phone number. You know, 8, 6, 2, 1. Because they all going to sound good. You know, they're not going to make a wrong choice. It's not like you're going to hit Hawaiian over here and you're going to hit one of these buttons that's going to say bagpipes. Okay? You'd never do that. So, I mean, there's no reason for that to be there. But choir will be on there. You know, vibes will be on there. Hawaiian guitar will be on there. Strings will be on there. Things that are that type of music. Now, none of those sounds are probably going to be there if I choose polka. Then I'm going to get things like the accordion and the tuba and the trombone and, you know, things like that. So once you're using those numbers, I mean, go through them first. You know, you're more than you know, able to put something that you want on those numbers. But the reason there's something there to begin with is so that you don't have to do that. Now, I hate to say that memorizing is kind of a last resort because it's beneficial for a lot of reasons, but they give you things on those numbers to save you from needing to unless you absolutely have to.
But if you memorize, John,
Yep.
that means that you're able to use that same setup even though you turn off the organ.
So if you memorize it, you're able to use that same setup even if you turn the instrument off. True.
Right, so
But if I go country number 4 and I turn the instrument off and turn it back on, the honky tonk piano's still going to be there. You know what I mean? So what's on these numbers by Lowry or by Yamaha, those are always there.
Right.
Even if I turn the instrument off and I turn it back on, what's on that number is on that number. So it's not as if me saving it to a preset is going to save it after I turn it off. It's still going to be there when I turn it off if I'm using what they chose.
But some songs are specific in how to set them up.
Yes, and that's what I was saying. If the number that you can go through all those numbers, and if you don't see what you want, then you got to put your own on there. But I assume to do that as a last resort. Use what they've given you first, and if you can't find what they've given you, then memorize as saying, all right, I got to memorize. And there's benefits to it, as we mentioned. You can save it indefinitely. Okay. But I'd make that my last thing. I'd always look on the instrument first.
Well, I have usually.
I see you, Mark.
Go ahead.
No. I don't want you to think I didn't see you.
Someone else?
Yeah, I had a comment on the same subject,
Okay.
in that, I've done that, you get the presets, as John says, on the 1 through 9 or 1 through 8 or whatever it is. You get the presets, so it's gonna come up with a Wang guitar and something else. And you may not want that something else. That's when you use the preset, then you change the other instrument, and then save it.
Then you
So that
can
way
you
you
can
have
do that.
the advantage of the preset.
So Mark is saying taking part of the preset. So if you hit a number and you like one of the 2 sounds that it chooses, because remember, once you're playing on an instrument that has 2 levels, they give you a sound here and a sound here. So I think if I'm interpreting what you're saying, right, you're saying, if I hit a number and I say, okay, I like the sound up here, but I want something different down there, you change the thing that's different down there, and then you can save it, and that way you have the 2 sounds that you want. But
And the background's all done too, that's all saved too.
and the background's all in there as well, and the tempo and all of that stuff also. I mean, the thing to remember, and I guess I'm hoping that this makes sense the way that I'm going to try to explain it. So when you hit one of these numbers, okay, I know I'm not going to spend the whole time on this because I know this doesn't affect everybody, but it affects enough of you where I'm hoping this makes sense. When you hit one of these numbers, let's say I hit number 5, and it says, I'll choose a different one. Number 3, Calliope and organ. Calliope's here, organ is there. If I make changes over on this side here, so let's say I manipulate this such that I do this. So I put a piano up here, and I put strings down there. Do you know what it says on the screen here?
It doesn't say that.
It says Calliope and organ,
Oh, okay.
because that's what was there first. Okay, so it's going to show you what's there originally. It's not going to show you what, I can look at the panel and I can see what I turned on, but I say that and try to bring this all around. I say that because the instrument has settings that cannot be erased that are in there. And that's why I mentioned if you just turn on country and hit 4, you're going to get the honky tonk piano up there, whether you saved it or you didn't. Okay, so there's settings that are in here, and when you hit one of these numbers, it's going to show you what is on that number unless you alter it. If you alter it, the keys are going to change. It's still going to stay the same here. Okay.
Yes. But I still have a question.
Okay.
I found that it's quicker for me
Mhm.
to go to the sounds when I get a piece to set up, and I look at the left-hand corner, look at the piece. I set up those sound. I then go to the back of my manual,
Mhm.
and I look at the sounds, and I find those sounds. I put the number down, write the number next to it, and then after I get all those sounds and I have all their numbers, then I find that I then set them up accordingly.
That's
Now, that's the way you doing it, but then you say you should do the way you said. All right,
Yeah.
so I did that with a piece this week.
Right.
And so I started off, and then I was looking for. I was looking for. I'll say guitar.
Okay.
All right. So then I hit my. I hit first of all I hit my style, which was pop. All right. Then now I'm looking for guitar. So now I go and I push my third button, and on this screen it shows all the instruments that are there. All right, no guitar. All right, so now I push the style button.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then I find no guitar. Then I pick the vintage button.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a guitar.
All right.
All right. So that's my first instrument that I'm going to be playing, or the first section.
Okay.
Now the second section, when they want me to switch to say the saxophone.
Right.
All right. So now I look at on the vintage, no saxophone. So I don't want to lose.
So you save it.
I saved
So I'd save it. That's fine.
All right, I saved it. All right. So now I go with my saxophone. And it's not there. So now I go back to just the way that it was set up originally, not on saxophone. So now I go and I hit it, style setup. All right. I hit saxophone. I save that. All right. So I keep doing that. All right. Now I'm all set. So now I think I'm going to play. So I sit down now. I had a preset number 1, preset number 2, number. All right. So now I had them all set up and all memorized. So now I'm all ready. I play my introduction. Everything's going fine. Now I push number 1.
Right.
I don't get what I said, what I wanted at the beginning.
In the screen or on the keys?
On the keys.
That's a hard question to answer in a forum like this. I'd actually have to have you do it. But to your question, if I can boil it down to Reader's Digest version here, you were saying at the beginning that you like to get all of your instruments lined up first, as opposed to looking to see what's on these numbers. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And there's that awful saying, there's 50 ways to skin a cat. Is that right? I don't know where that came from. It's terrible, but it's the same general idea. If you're going to bake a cake and you have all the ingredients, do you put all of the ingredients on the kitchen counter so they're all ready to go and you can just grab them, or do you grab them one by one from the pantry? The cake's going to come out the same, whether you set yourself up to make it one way or the other. It's just a matter of what's preferable to you. So if you like to do it that way, that's fine. But in terms of how or why you memorize the sound and then it's not there, I'd have to see you do it. So if you make a lesson, we'll get together and I'll have you do it, and then I should be able to tell you why. But it's hard for me to tell you just off of that description. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
So after you've manipulated all that, if you wanted to go back to the presets, you just hit number 4.
So that's a good question. So when you say after I've manipulated all this, and if I want to get back to the presets, I just hit the number. Do you mean after I've done like some saving?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I want to get back to what they originally have, okay, every instrument has this little button called Style Setup. Okay. And Style Setup, a lot of students overthink this because they ask me what style setup is, and they think that I'm being cute when I say it sets up the style, because that's what it says. Okay, but the style setup is the reason why you can turn an instrument off, turn it back on, hit Latin, and just start to play. Notice all of these lights came on. Okay, it's the same general idea over here. If I turn this off and turn it back on, and I hit Latin, once the panel comes back, I don't need to do anything else in order to play the song. Bunch of stuff turned on over there. Okay. So as long as this button is on, okay, whatever's on these numbers is going to be what was there first, what was there originally, okay? Because when you save on the fanfare, you're saving to these numbers, but you're saving to them basically, if you will, without, you're not using this button, you're using what you want, okay? Style setup, is allowing them to choose. You know, you're telling them, give me a setup based upon the type of music I chose. And every one of these numbers, gives me a different style setup. So to just use what they wanted, if I've done a bunch of stuff and I say, okay, I want to use what they have on number 6, I just make sure this is on, I hit 6, and I'm going to get what they originally
So
put
you
there.
gotta hit the style setup.
Got to make sure that's on. As long as that's on, you can go to any one of those numbers and it will give you what they originally intended to be on that number. Next question. I'll look up. Yeah, go ahead.
If you turn on, if you wanted to use your own customs like he does, you'd hit A4.
Correct.
Okay. What if you turn the A off? What do you get?
So if the A is off and the style setup is off,
Yeah.
okay, you get on those numbers what we call general setups. And those are the only ones, interestingly enough, well, you know what? Some manuals are different, so don't quote me on this, but if you look in your owner's manual, you're not going to see, for the most part, what is on these numbers, because your owner's manual would have to be enormous, because everything that's on these numbers changes when you choose a different blue button. So nowhere in your owner's manual, in other words, are you going to be able to see what's on rock and roll guitarist number 4. Because again, your manual would have to be this big in order to show you all of those things. But what's on these numbers when neither the style setup nor the A is on are what we call general setups, and those are in the owner's manual.
And they vary to the right over there too, by the way, Latin.
Well, that's different.
Oh,
That's different.
Yeah.
Because that will affect those. But I'm just talking about what's on those numbers no matter what. And if you look in your owner's manual, they're called general setups, and they're called general setups because they generally sound good with most songs. So number 2 is like the flamenco guitar and the strings or vibes or something like that. Piano's on one of them. There's an organ sound. There's strings. But that's what's on those numbers. If you're not using what you saved and you're not using the style setup, general setups they're called, and they're in the book.
Okay.
Yes.
I must say, I don't think I've ever used the style setup.
You probably haven't ever hit it because it turns on its own. It's one of the few buttons that turns on without you having to turn it on. So if you ever hit it, you'd actually be turning it off.
Oh, so it's just on.
It's just on. Yeah, it's on. It's one of the few things that when you hit power, so everything right now is off, watch this button. There it is. Automatically turns on. So I'd actually have to disable it in order to not use it.
Because, when you give us a piece,
Mhm.
it says use like piano in the right hand. and
Right.
Full band or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So the style setup then.
So what the style setup does is it gives you an original setting to use for a song of that type. It may not give you what you want, but it's going to give you something. If I didn't have this button, in other words, if you watch all of the buttons that turn on when I hit smooth, so if you watch the panel, okay, style setup did all of that. Okay, so I would have had to do all of that if I didn't have style setup. Okay. Now, Mark, just give me 1 second, 'cause I don't want to lose this thought, and maybe your thought process is right where I'm going. So a question that usually comes up right now, after I go over something like that, is someone would say, well, then why can I turn it off? You know, if it does that, that's a great thing. You know, so why would they give me the opportunity to not use it? And can anybody think of probably a couple of them? There's one that comes to mind to me. What would be a reason why you might be able to disable style setup?
Well, you get other sounds. You'll get other sounds for that style. When you turn on a style,
Yeah.
all right, then you have the option of just having the general, or if you hit the style setup, you'll get 10 more, or what.
Well, I mean, but not. No, look at this. Okay, so not on here. Okay, this has got style setup on or off. Doesn't have the numbers in the middle, which is fine. But that's a little bit different than what you're used to.
Oh,
Okay. Let me give you an explanation that I think should make sense. So if this is on, I'm basically telling the instrument that I want you, instrument, to set up a certain selection of sounds, not determined by me, but determined by you, that you determine is going to sound good with this style I chose. Okay? Let's say that I wanted to use my own setting of completely different buttons for one page of the song. And then I said, you know what, when I get to the second page, I'd like to change to a different arrangement, but I'd like to change to it pretty quickly. What you do is you start with that button off. You set the buttons exactly the way that you want to set them up, which is a little bit more daunting of a task. But then if I get in the middle of the song and I say, I want a quick change and I'm going to use what they used, boom, I turn it on and everything changes to what they chose. It could change stuff over here, it could change stuff over here, it could change a variety of things. But this button gives you the ability to use what you want, or by turning it back on, what they did, what they thought would sound good. And guess what? When you turn it off, it goes back to what you chose. So, you know, we're talking about memorize and how you can get to all of these sounds. This doesn't have a button that says memorize, but that's essentially what this allows me to do. Okay, so I can put the sounds that I want over here, and the style, obviously. And then if I get to another page, or maybe the bridge of a song, and I say, okay, I want a quick change. Boom, I'm going to hit that. Now I'm going to be limited to what they chose, but what they chose is probably just going to sound pretty good. Okay, and now I have a whole different setting that is different from what I started with, and if I want to revert back to what I used, I just turn that off. And it goes back to what I originally set up. Now it's going to be that way until I turn off the power, but it's a nice opportunity to be able, on an instrument without memorize, to, you know, have the ability to change to a different portion of the song using multiple buttons with just the touch of one.
Question on that?
Yeah.
So if you don't have the style on, you're not going to get any other sound?
I mean, it'll choose some things for you, but the things that it chooses are not going to be based upon the style. You know, I'll give you an example. One thing it will not touch is it will not touch the right hand. So right now, the right hand is piano. Okay, if I hit rock and roll, it's piano. If I hit Latin, it's piano. Smooth, country, standard, waltz. Didn't change this at all. Now, if this was on, this is just right hand, okay? It's choosing some stuff over here as well. But if this is off, it's not going to change anything.
But you're changing styles when you go from button.
But when this is off, I also changed styles. And nothing over here changed. Remember, it was piano no matter which one I hit.
John,
Even though you hit the presets?
Even though I hit one of these numbers. This was off.
Oh, those are presets on the left.
These
Yeah.
are styles.
Styles, all right.
Yeah. Presets would be here, which I don't have on this.
Easy doesn't have presets?
The Easy 3 does not have
Oh,
presets.
okay, all right.
Yeah, not multiple
All right,
presets,
that's
no.
it.
Or
That's
setups,
that
yeah.
explains, okay.
Mark.
One thing I find, John, and something, John often sneakily will pick settings for a song that match the style setups built into the machine. So if he says, I want you to play this Latin song with, maybe if you had two labors, I want, piano here and piccolo there or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you find, if you go through the list of the style setups, he's already grabbed them from one of those.
It is often the case that if I give you an arrangement, there's probably a relatively easy way to get to it. The hope being that you do a little bit of searching. But yeah, if I say we want to use this sound on this page and we want to use this sound on this page, the first place that I would look is, I always look to see what's the easiest way to play the song possibly, because I have to play the notes and the chords. So if I can minimize the amount of buttons that I have to hit, I'm going to be in good shape. So yeah, I would check to see if there's a quick way to get to the suggested arrangement.
Not to say you're sneaky.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. And it's the same way, even looking at, an instrument like the EZ3, very unopposing, or unimposing rather, as compared to, that or even this. They thought that same way, meaning easiest way to get to different sounds, when they compared the construction of this to a keyboard. When you look at this and you say, all right, I want to use the piano sound. What do I have to do to get the sound of the piano? I hit one button, and now I have piano. Could I do that on a keyboard? I could. Okay, the two keyboards that I have here, it takes me 4 buttons to do that. All right, if I want to change the guitar, there's a jazz guitar, and amongst others, if I want to do something else, 1 button. Be another 4 buttons on the keyboard. So, I know we're kind of talking about some larger instruments and how the bigger the instrument is, or the more advanced it is, the easier it is to get to different sounds. But this is night and day as compared to keyboards. Night and day. You don't have to do anywhere near as much work on here because they're not competing with these. They're competing with keyboards. And that was their reasoning behind setting that. There's nothing on a keyboard that says style setup. Nothing like that. Okay. The keyboards oftentimes will give you a different sound if you're trying to play more than one finger in the left hand. Okay, these don't. You can play 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 4, however many you want to do. The keyboards, either they don't have a setting like that, or you really have to manipulate them. So, that was what they basically, which was smart, when they were constructing this, they basically put it next to a keyboard, and they said, why is this not fun? What about this can we fix when we, make something that is basically designed to sit in that same, or designed for that same general customer. This is the same size as one of the tabletop keyboards. So, you put them next to each other and you say, okay, what can I put on this to distinguish it from this? And those are just a couple. Other questions?
I always have a question.
Go ahead.
All right, on the...
How are we doing on time, by the way?
Well, I have 1 minute.
No.
1 minute before you...
It's almost 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock already?
Yes.
Holy cow, that went by fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you're having fun, it goes by fast.
Well, we'll do your last question. We'll do one last question after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Last question, or my last question. Setting up this week,
Yep.
it was one section or one preset or one section wanted the let's see, what did it want? It wanted the it
Wanted the harmonica to start.
No, it wanted the in the harmony section. It wanted the AOC and the duet.
Or duet. Or. One or the other.
One or the other.
One or the other, because not everybody has both. Okay.
I thought it said both.
No.
And then so I hit harmony, but it
Yeah, you can't put them on at the same time.
You have to set up 2 setups for 2 presets.
Yeah, but you couldn't use them simultaneously, and you're not supposed to. It's just one or the other. And I would err on the side of AOC.
Yeah.
That'll sound better.
Well, that's what I was doing, because AOC means all the chords. So
Right.
duet.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. It said. I think it said AOC/duet, which meant either or. Probably should have said or duet, but it was one or the other.
That's like something barbershop quartet and a single singer
Right.
sort of thing. You can't do both.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
they
I
yell
mean,
at
you
each other.
could do them both on different levels on that instrument, but you can't do them both at the same time. Another question. Bert, that was a fast one for you.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you another one, but that was a fast one.
Though. What's a shuffle?
What's a shuffle?
Yeah, how
It's a
do you get-
dance.
Like you said, what?
It's a dance.
Yeah, but like now pop with the style pop, and it says pop shuffle.
Mhm.
What do you hit for a shuffle?
Stick around afterwards and I'll take a look on your instrument and see exactly what you might want to use. But for this song,
Yeah.
use your song setup. It's in there. We're doing Happy Together by the Turtles. It's in your song setup. So at least start there and that'll choose a beat for you.
John, the
Oh,
So I would use
yeah,
that.
I get the beat. So that beat, that's a shuffle.
That's your beat. Yeah.
I thought
that's
it
your
was
beat.
like a boogie woogie or something. A shuffle. No.
No, whatever it chose is going to be what you want to use. So you start there and then change your instruments from there.
Oh,
But yeah, this is in your song setup, which is, and for those of you that aren't familiar with song setup, quick, and then Mark, I promise I will go to you. Song setup here in the middle. Best instrument that they ever came up with. So great that it was stolen and renamed by Yamaha something different. I can't say it was stolen. I don't know who came up with it first, but it's called Music Finder on here. I'm going to get myself in trouble because I'm on camera. See, I can say these things when I'm not on camera. Yamaha did not steal this, as far as I know. Okay, I'll make that clear. They have the same feature. It's just called something different. I don't know who came out with it first. Okay, but I will tell you the way that it was described to me, and forgive me if you've heard this before, is that when you hit it, basically it's like you going into a music store 50 years from now, looking at an instrument that has no buttons on the panel, but you know it plugs into the wall. And you said to that person that's working at that music store 50 years from now, which is hopefully not me, you said to them, how do you set it up? I mean, I know it plugs into the wall. It's got to have a lot of sounds on it. How do you set it up? And they said to you, this is voice activated. Tell it the name of the song that you want to play, and it will set itself up. Okay, now it's not voice activated yet, but it's about as close as it can get with song setup. So if all I did was turn this on from being off, and I wanted to play She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain, and I scroll alphabetically here, and I hit select, it knows that's a song I want to play. So when I play my first chord, there's Dinah. And we did the same exact thing for Happy Together. So if you're looking for that shuffle beat, go into your song setup, find Happy Together, hit select. You can alter anything, but at least it will give you a starting point, and then that's going to be your beat. That's going to be your shuffle beat.
A lot of songs though say shuffle, and I don't know how to get them.
This is one thing that Yamaha does a little bit better than Lowry, because in their song setup, which is called Music Finder, you can type in the word shuffle. And whereas Lowry allows you to find styles via, well, you can go through all of the styles. They're all alphabetized. So if you go through all of your styles, there's probably going to be a couple that say shuffle. Or you can go through the songs. Okay. But here I can type in their search engine that they have built in, I could type in all styles that start at 100. It'll give me all of the styles that come up naturally at 100. Or all the styles that come up at 110 or something. But I could also write the word shuffle. So if I wrote the word shuffle, it would look not only for songs that have that word in the title, but also styles that have the word shuffle in it. But I would look in your book. That is in your book. Or you have a listing of all of the styles and see if one of them says shuffle. But as I said, first things first, go to your song setup. Okay?
Hey, just one more quick comment, John.
Go ahead.
Just squeeze something in here. On the Yamaha and on some of the Lowrys, you can also change the volume by hitting the keyboard harder.
You can. So you have the keyboard touch as well. And
Another way of getting the volume.
It is. And they've actually, on the Yamahas, they have incorporated that feature, whereas if you hit your chord harder, the background goes up as well. That's a new thing.
Right.
Before it was just right hand activated, but on the Clavinova line, I've noticed that when I play my chord with a little bit more chutzpah, You know, I'm gonna get a louder everything, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
Yeah, and they do sell, which I have it set up here on the 709 here, but this would fit in any Clavinova. It's not going to work in the keyboards, but it does work in the Clavinovas. This is a volume control on the right hand side. I could put it on the left if I want, which is exactly like this. So if I want to manipulate my volume, because if I didn't have that and I wanted to bring everything up or down, a lot of people would think, well, master volume here. But then again, my hands are off of the keys hitting that feature. Well, they sell that pedal so that I can manipulate the volume just like I can on here without ever having to take my fingers off the keys. You just plug it right in the back. Any other questions? What time is it exactly?
7 past.
7 past. Okay, all right. So I won't hold you any longer. I'm sure you have a lot to do on this Saturday afternoon. But I thank you for coming. We're going to do this again at the end of September. Okay? And obviously don't feel like you have to wait to ask questions. But I always find that during class, we got a lot of stuff to go over. You know, songs and things like that. So I find that these are always good because they give us the opportunity to spend a bit more time you know, without having the added pressure of having to teach a song at the same time. So we will do this again in a couple weeks. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm looking at my camera now and it looks like it's upside down, so I hope we haven't been upside down this whole time, but I guess we'll find out. And you'll be able to watch this probably by the end of this weekend, either on Facebook or on our website. So if you want to go back, and they've been documented the last couple months, so you can always go back and look at those. There'll be different questions on each one, basically all asked by Bert, pretty much. But you know, he comes up with some pretty good ones every month. And obviously, you're more than welcome to join us on the 28th when we do this again.
Should I take a bow?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, I'm certainly not kicking you out. So if you have any questions about, I know some of you need a copy of the new material, I'll give you that. If you need to make a lesson with me, obviously you can stop by the desk. We can do that as well. And thanks for coming, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your long weekend.
Thank you, Jen.
You
Welcome.
do.